Welcome back, everyone. Tonight, we're diving deep into human connection. We've got 10 stories lined up, and I gotta say, some of these are real tearjerkers.
Yeah, you might want to grab a tissue or two.
Definitely. We're talking about forgotten gardens turning into sanctuaries, poetry tackling some really tough topics, and friendships blossoming online.
It's a reminder that no matter how crazy the world gets, we're all connected in ways we might not even realize.
Exactly. Like our first story, The Forgotten Garden. We meet Mr. Hawthorne, this sweet older gentleman who's created a little Eden out of a neglected space.
And it's more than just pretty flowers, isn't it?
Right. It's about how that garden becomes this meeting point for him and Eliza, this young woman who's kind of lost herself.
They find peace, not just in tending the garden, but in each other. It's amazing how sharing even something as simple as gardening can create a bond, especially across generations.
Absolutely. It's like those quiet moments often have the biggest impact. All right, let's switch gears a bit to echoes of conflict. We've got C.J. Suit, a young poet whose work dives headfirst into some heavy stuff around race and identity.
What's fascinating is how his poem, also called Echoes of Conflict, sparked these deep conversations in his community.
Yeah.
Makes you think maybe art can be a more powerful way to address these sensitive topics than, say, a heated debate. What do you think?
It's like poetry bypasses all the defenses and speaks straight to the heart. Now, talking about unsung heroes, we have the guardian of the park. Mrs. Green, this amazing woman, is single-handedly keeping her local park clean and safe.
Talk about dedication. But it does make you wonder, is it fair to put so much responsibility on one person? Shouldn't there be more community support, maybe even from the city?
That's a great point. It raises some questions about civic duty and how we care for our shared spaces. Okay, next up is a story that I think will resonate with a lot of people. The hidden talent. We've got Alex, a high school student who discovers a passion for poetry. We've all had those moments where we find something we love, but we're too scared to share it.
Absolutely, and that's where Alex's teacher comes in. It's a great example of how a mentor can make all the difference in helping someone overcome their fears and embrace their talents.
Sometimes all it takes is that little nudge. All right, ready for a story that spans decades. The Lost Letter introduces us to Sarah. She finds a love letter hidden in an antique desk she buys and decides to track down the recipient.
That's a romantic gesture for sure. But
Yeah.
ethically, it's a bit of a gray area, wouldn't you say?
Totally. Who are we to potentially disrupt someone's life after all this time? It's a reminder that even with the best intentions, we need to be mindful of the impact our actions might have.
Definitely something to think about. Okay, from a lost love letter to a place of second chances. In the Café of Second Chances, we meet Marco. He's a former convict who opens a cafe. But it becomes so much more than just a place to get coffee.
Sounds like it's more of a haven.
Exactly.
Ugh.
Marco uses poetry nights to create this safe space where people can share their stories and connect with others who understand their struggles.
It's a beautiful reminder that everyone deserves a second chance and that our past doesn't have to define us. Now, for another story about the power of mentorship, we have the mentor's verse. This time, it's Mr. Wallace, a retired teacher who starts a poetry club for at-risk youth. It's amazing how a simple thing like poetry can have such a profound impact.
It's not just about the words themselves, it's about the connection and support that come with sharing those words in a safe space. Mr. Wallace is giving these kids a voice, a way to express themselves that they might not have had otherwise.
That's so powerful. Okay, let's jump into the digital world with a digital connection. This story explores how two people, literally on opposite sides of the planet, form a deep bond through an online poetry forum. You know, sometimes we get caught up in how technology isolates us, but this story shows how it can also connect us in unexpected ways.
It's really cool how these two people found each other through their shared love of poetry. It proves that genuine relationships can flourish online and that geography doesn't have to be a barrier to connection.
It's like the internet becomes a bridge instead of a wall. Okay, now get ready for a tearjerker. Reunion of the Heart tells the story of an elderly war hero returning to his hometown for a reunion.
Oh, this one gets me every time. He reconnects with a lost love, which is so heartwarming, but there's a twist.
The twist.
She's terminally ill and wants to spend her final days in their childhood home. It's a beautiful but bittersweet reminder that life is precious and that even when faced with loss, love endures.
Makes you want to hold your loved ones a little tighter.
It really does.
And last but not least, we have The Last Slam. A story about Dasan Ahanu, a local poetry slam champion facing his biggest challenge yet. You'd think someone who performs in front of crowds would be fearless. But it turns out, Even the most talented people struggle with self-doubt.
His story is a reminder that we all have our own internal battles to fight, and sometimes the biggest victory is overcoming those inner demons.
Inspiring, right?
Absolutely. It shows us that even when we're scared, we're capable of amazing things.
It's a message we can all take to heart.
You know, it's kind of amazing how these everyday people, just normal folks, become these catalysts for connection.
Yeah, they're not celebrities or anything, just making choices that have this ripple effect.
Exactly. And it's inspiring, right? Because it shows that it could be us. Any of us could be those people, just through small acts of kindness or whatever.
Okay, let's go back to the Forgotten Garden for a sec. What really struck you about Mr. Hawthorne and Eliza's connection?
Well, I think it's just so organic, you know. It grows out of this shared love of nature. The garden becomes their sanctuary.
Yeah, this escape from the city, finding peace and taking care of something together.
And it also taps into that whole idea of the therapeutic power of nature, which we keep hearing about.
Less stress, better mental well-being,
Right.
sense of community, just from getting your hands dirty.
Right, right.
Speaking of community, the guardian of the park, Mrs. Green. Wow, one person can make a difference in their surroundings.
No doubt about it. But it did get me thinking, you know, we celebrate individuals like her, which is great, but do we maybe undervalue the collective effort? What if Mrs. Green's passion sparked a whole neighborhood movement?
Like a Friends of the Park group or something.
Exactly. Imagine the impact then. It wouldn't just be one hero, it'd be a whole team.
That's a great point, shifting the focus to shared responsibility.
Right. Not to take away from what she's doing, but it's about that momentum.
Okay, switching gears a bit here. The hidden talent.
Mm.
What is it about poetry that allows people to connect so deeply?
Well, I think poetry is like, it's almost like it distills emotion. It takes these complicated things that we struggle to express in everyday language and through rhythm and metaphor and all that, it becomes so powerful.
Yeah, like a shortcut straight to the heart.
Exactly. And Alex finding her voice through it, I think that resonates with a lot of us. We've all had those moments where we're hesitant to share something we've created.
Totally.
But her teacher's encouragement, that's key, right?
Yeah.
That's what mentorship can do. It gives you that courage to try, even if you're scared.
It's true. Just a little nudge can go a long way. All right, let's talk about The Lost Letter. It's a story that literally spans decades. Sarah's quest to return that old love letter. It's romantic, sure, but also kind of ethically tricky.
Oh, for sure. Good intentions only get you so far, right? What if that letter reveals a secret that the recipient has worked hard to move on from?
Yeah, reopening old wounds without consent. It's a tough one.
It is. There are no easy answers there, but I think it's good to be made uncomfortable by these things sometimes. Makes you really examine your own impulses.
Okay, let's move from potentially painful secrets to a place of healing. The Café of Second Chances. Marco using his cafe to create this haven for people, that's pretty special.
It is. It's more than just a business. It's a testament to believing in people, even when they don't believe in themselves.
Right.
And that poetry night he hosts, it's not just entertainment, it's catharsis, it's shared vulnerability. And I think that's really powerful.
It's a reminder that everyone deserves that chance, a chance to define themselves beyond their past.
Exactly. Marco is living proof that change is possible and that offering compassion, even to people who've made mistakes, can have these ripple effects.
Okay, another story about mentorship. The mentor's verse. Mr. Wallace starts this poetry club for at-risk youth. What resonated most with you about this one?
I think it's the trust that he builds with these kids, you know? He's not just teaching them how to rhyme, he's giving them this outlet, this way to process trauma, anger, all these things that could be bottled up inside.
Using art as a lifeline.
Right, and that's what makes him a true mentor, not just a teacher. It's more than the words, it's the context in which they're shared, that safe space he creates.
And it's a good reminder that sometimes the most impactful help is the kind that doesn't judge, it just listens and provides tools for self-discovery.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, from a supportive classroom to the vastness of the internet, the digital connection really showed us that even online, these deep bonds can form.
Yeah, I loved that story. It kind of flips the script on how we view technology, right? It can be isolating, sure, but it can also open us up to people we'd never meet otherwise, people who get us on a deeper level.
And finding someone who really gets your poetry, regardless of how many miles are between you, that's pretty special.
Absolutely. It's all about finding your tribe, even if that tribe is scattered all over the world.
Now, for a story that reminds us to cherish the people we love, especially when facing loss, Reunion of the Heart, oh man.
This one is bittersweet for sure. You have that rekindled love, the power of shared history, but there's that ticking clock in the background.
Yeah, but it doesn't take away from their joy, does it?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It makes it even more poignant, but not less real.
It highlights how precious time is, especially with those who matter most to us.
Exactly. And it makes you think about how we handle our own goodbyes, how we make peace with the inevitable.
Okay, last but not least, the last slam. Dasanahanu facing down that stage fright. It's a reminder that we all have those internal battles, even the people we think of as fearless.
We put people in the spotlight on a pedestal, but they're just as human as anyone else. And those internal battles, those are the things we all connect with.
It makes his eventual triumph so much more meaningful.
Because it wasn't just about winning a competition, it was about overcoming himself.
Right, and that's something that resonates with everyone, I think, that idea of pushing past your fear to share your gifts.
No matter what those gifts may be.
So after all these stories, what's the main thing that stands out to you? What do you hope our listeners take away from this?
I think what really hits home for me is that we're way more interconnected than we realize. These stories aren't about grand gestures or anything. It's the small things. It's the kindness, the listening, that split-second decision to connect with someone.
Like that saying, we rise by lifting others.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be this huge effort. Offering a kind word to a stranger, truly listening when a friend's sharing their worries, even just taking a moment to appreciate a flower that someone planted, those little things, they can have a ripple effect that we might not even see.
It's about understanding that our everyday choices, even the small ones, can have a big impact, not just on us, but on everyone around us.
Right, and each of us has something to offer, even if we don't feel special or anything. Every story we talked about showed how regular people, just in their own way, made their little corner of the world a little bit better.
What would you say to listeners who might be feeling isolated or disconnected? How do you think they can find those meaningful connections?
Well, I think the first thing is to be open to new experiences. Step outside that comfort zone. You never know where you might meet someone you really click with. Join a club, take a class, strike up a conversation with someone you wouldn't normally talk to.
It's like taking a chance on the world, saying yes to the possibilities.
Right, and be present in those interactions, Truly listen to what the other person is saying, share authentically, and don't be afraid to be a little vulnerable. That's how real trust is built.
Let people see the real you, messy bits and all.
Exactly. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. It's what allows us to really connect on a deeper level, to say, hey, me too. I struggle with that too.
And what about technology? Can we really form genuine connections online?
Well, the digital connection showed us it's definitely possible. Technology can connect us with people all over the world who share our passions. It can really expand our world in ways we might never have imagined.
It's like finding your tribe, even if they're spread out across different continents.
But it's important to remember that it's not a replacement for face-to-face interaction. It's about finding a balance, using technology to enhance relationships, not to be your only source of them.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into human connection, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to remember?
I think the biggest thing is hope. Even in a world that can feel divided and chaotic sometimes, there's still so much good out there. There's beauty in the everyday moments, in the simple acts of kindness, in the way we come together, even when things are tough.
It's about remembering that we're all part of something bigger than ourselves, and that our choices really do matter.
And that by choosing empathy, compassion, and connection, we can help create a world where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued.
So listeners, as you go about your day, keep in mind the heartbeat of human connection. Spread kindness, lend a helping hand, share your own stories. You never know who you might touch.
Every connection, every act of kindness, it all makes a difference. And together we can create a world where everyone feels like they belong.
Thanks for joining us on this heartwarming journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep those heartbeats strong.